Okay, happy Thursday, I believe, right? So I had some things that were bumping around my inbox, one of which I apologize in advance. Been sitting there way too long, but I'm finally trying to get to it. But I thought first we could look at this Tales of the Valiant from Kobold Press. I believe this is their new 5e alternative rule set, right? If we remember to the our long, cold, dark winter when OGL madness erupted, one of the things it did was triggered a whole bunch of third-party folks to say, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we better put our own system in place so that, as the Who might say, we can't get fooled again. Well, this is Kobold Press's one. And I apologize if this video they have here on this homepage is making you dizzy. As I've been sitting here waiting for the video to count down to start the stream, it's been going over and over and over again. And it's making me a little nutso, but we get the drift of it. There's a preview packet that we'll look at in a minute, but I thought we could start by kind of checking out their site at large. I have a link to the Kickstarter in the show notes. If you are interested in this, if you could use that link, it has a referral code. The referral code doesn't net me any money. I'm not linked into Kickstarter or anything like that. But what it will do is it will tell Kobold Press that dealing with me is not a complete waste of their time. So it just shows that, if you're interested, and hey, right, talking to Todd meant that some folks who are interested in actually sort of, acted upon that interest. That's all. And they don't give me anything, and of course, only click on it if you are interested. Don't just click on it for my sake. But let me take a sip here. This is Tea Kuan Yin oolong tea for the working man. And let's just dive right in and see what Tales of the Valiant has in store. I haven't pre-looked at the website or the materials, as is usual. Be bold, be brave, be valiant. Tales of the Valiant is a core fantasy role-playing game that builds on the Creative Commons foundation of 5th edition. Fully compatible with the 5e products you already know and love, Tales of the Valiant is a new game, but if you've played 5th edition D&D, you'll feel right at home. Why is Kobold Press taking this step? For 17 years, Kobold Press has made top-quality role-playing material, adventures, supplements, accessories, and more. We've grown from 3 kobolds in a trench coat to 5, and it's time for a new trench coat. Tales of the Valiant is that new coat. Tales of the Valiant moves the independent 5th edition community forward with a system that is open and available to all. Our goal is to keep 5e products vibrant both in print and on VTT partner platforms by keeping a set of rules available under an open, perpetual, and irrevocable license. We are writing Tales of the Valiant now. You might have seen some of our first experimental playtest documents. It is a work in progress. When it's done, it will be based on the new core fantasy role-playing rules. If you're just joining us, the core fantasy role-playing rules will be a complete distilled system document permanently available to everyone. So I think this is their version of the SRD. Version of the SRD. What's the format for Tales of the Valiant? You only need 2 books to play, the Player's Guide and the Monster Vault. The Player's Guide includes 13 base classes, lineages, and heritages from classic fantasy role-playing, and all of the rules you need to be a player or GM all in one book. The Monster Vault includes every dungeon crawling and fire belching fantasy creature you need to craft compelling fantasy encounters. And that's only a start. We've launched the Tales of the Valiant Kickstarter, and we expect to ship both books in early 2024. During development, Kickstarter backers get the inside track with 2 bonus sets of playtest material. Become one of the Valiant. Sign up now to back Tales of the Valiant. And there's their link to the Kickstarter. Like I said, if this intrigues you, interests you, please use the Kickstarter link in the show description if you're a member, because like I said, it just signals to Kobold Press that, hey, this guy at Hexed Press, he's not a complete and utter waste of space. Let's see. Let's get in the game details. I guess I'm just going to keep reading through. Tales of the Valiant is the most established new game you'll ever play. We had already committed to creating our own game when the 5th edition System Reference Document 5.1 was released into the Creative Commons. After that, it was clear we could build on the foundation that so many people already know and love. While its roots are familiar, the Tales of the Valiant RPG brings new realms of adventure to the table. Explore the new Mechanist class, the Kobold and Bearfolk character lineages, and hundreds of new options in the form of talents, spells, and monsters. Kobold Press is refitting 5th edition to use more straightforward language, reduce complexity, and organize information in a user-friendly way. This presentation style uses examples and standout advice to help onboard new players. Here are the big picture streamlining goals we are working toward. Make the rules easier to read, understand, and use. reduce GM burden with encounter building tools, exploration encounter tools, social encounter tools, and more. Rebalance some existing elements such as feats, now known as talents, and subclasses. Provide opportunities for PCs to make meaningful choices throughout every level of play. Make spellcasting cooler. Keep combat interesting for martial characters. So I like that they give us some goals here. Making the rules easier to read, understand, and use is good. I think it's one of those things, right? It's an internet issue. I don't know that it's so much a real life issue for the most part. I mean, granted, the rules in 5th edition are not necessarily always super easy to read, but there's not, I think, for the most part, in people's real groups, if they're not part of the internet bubble, that really gets so much into the rules as written, rules as intended, all that stuff. I don't tend to think so. Maybe I could be wrong, but certainly it's a fine goal to say, let's make it even easier and maybe reduce some of that, even if it's 10% of the populace putting out most of the complaints about it. Reduce the GM burden, also great. Encounter building tools, exploration encounter tools, social encounter tools, all sound great. I mean, who doesn't like more tools? Who would not love a system like 5th edition to have some more tools for just reducing the burden on the GM, which I think in 5th edition tends to be more burdensome as a system than others, certainly more than the more rules lightish OSR games. Rebalance existing elements, I guess that's fine. Meaningful choices for PC throughout every level of play. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe someone can hit me to that. That seems like you do have meaningful choices throughout every level of the game, but there may be something, maybe some nuance there I'm missing, or this is a kind of a keyword for a conversation I haven't been a part of. Make spellcasting cooler. Does spellcasting need to be made cooler? That one almost is, I have to say, is a little bit. I'll be curious to read what it is. Because look, I think, hey, make everything cooler. If you think that this thing is kind of fuddy-duddy, boring, whatever, make it cooler. But of the things to make cooler, I wouldn't have put like, hey, what really needs to be jazzed up is spellcasting, because it already is, I think, fairly cool. I mean, just it spells. It's all. I don't know if anyone's made a spellcasting system that is not cool in some way, just because you're casting spells. But I would have been the one I would like to say is make marshals cooler, or give them some things to do that maybe don't make modern players feel like they're left behind, or somehow don't have as many toys as other classes. But then here we do have keep combat interesting for martial characters, which is cool. I guess maybe they're trying to get away from the, hey, I just hit, I swing and hit, I swing again kind of thing. Not sure. It's interesting because I feel like in 5th edition, every character has its version of that. It's not just marshals, but I don't think it's much different than the warlock or whatever saying, they cast their one spell that they're going to cast over and over again, or the paladin doing their smite thing over and over again. Or a lot of classes to me have this sort of, you're doing the same thing kind of over and over again. But hey, marshals getting some spotlighting in terms of fixes to the system, or at least looking at them saying, yes, we want to pay special attention to them. I am not gonna poo-poo that. The name game. What happened to Project Black Flag? Amid the noise and explosions in the TTRPG business in January 2023, Kobold Press decided to make a completely free, open, 5e compatible RPG that gamers could use and under which they could publish forever. We call this audacious new thing Project Black Flag. Striking the colors. But black flags are for rebellion. We want more than that. We want to stand for something. We want a home. So for the rest of 2023, you'll see less Black Flag talk from Kobold Press. It doesn't quite fit what we're doing, and crucially, we can't trademark those terms and logos, so we can't build on them. And if we want a home, we need to build it. Going forward, we're making a 5e core game system that everyone can use for free forever. It's called the Core Fantasy Role-Playing CFR Rule System. We're putting it together now, and if you want to build on CFR2, please back it. But we want to take it even further. We want to be bold in publishing new ideas, brave in standing up for our principles, and valiant like the characters we tell stories about. So for the rest of the year, we'll talk more about our own game, Tales of the Valiant. It will run on CFR rules, but it will be 100% Kobold Press's game. In old terms, think of CFR as the equivalent of the D&D SRD, and Tales of the Valiant as the equivalent of D&D. And then what's the difference? The core is free, open, 5e compatible game system available forever. And Tales of the Valiant is the Kobold Press game based on that core fantasy role-playing system where they're doing their own thing. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the process. If you're interested, you can go to their website and check it out. And their schedule. So right now we're in May, and they've got the Kickstarter ongoing. In June, we're going to get some more stuff. So they sent, as part of the kind of press release stuff, whoops, I'm jumping ahead there. They sent this along, a Tales of the Valiant preview, which I thought we could look at. I'm thinking it's not going to take super long time because I booked 2 things here. So I'm sort of hoping that I didn't overextend myself, but we will we'll do what we can. So this is the Tales of the Valiant preview. I don't think I have something special. I think this is something that's just on. You can probably get via the Kickstarter. I think there might have been a direct link to it in the press release. I'm not sure, but I don't think this is anything. It's not special, I guess, in other words. I don't think this is anything that you probably haven't seen or couldn't see if you went and poked around and found it. But it is, we've got some character creation, we've got some character classes, some spell casting, and some monsters. So you're getting a little, they're giving you a sneak peek of a little bit of each thing, which is good. I'm going to skip over intro stuff. I think we went over core fantasy, so I don't think we need to go over that again. But I will read the elements of core fantasy, which I guess is their sort of setting concepts, the core concepts on which this setting, or their, I guess, the inherent setting of core fantasy is built. And those are: fantasy worlds have magic. The presence of magic is a core principle of the fantasy genre. Your setting might have a spin on how magic works, but it should be present, and the PCs should be able to access it. Second is heroic adventures. Fantasy stories are usually about heroes. The heroes, in this case the PCs, are the focus. They need opportunities to defeat foes, make important decisions, and solve problems with their actions. Third, unique locations to explore. Fantasy worlds are full of unique locales, cultures, and creatures. Core fantasy role-playing games include all manner of interesting corners to explore and wonders to uncover. 4, power structures and systems. Whether through villainous empires or friendly guild factions, fantasy stories include larger organizations that can challenge or push the heroes to grow their abilities. These power structures often form the cornerstone of a campaign, a long game that runs across many sessions, and the most compelling core fantasy role-playing adventures. 5 is conflict. The fantasy genre is often about standing up against impossible odds and emerging victorious. This game keeps that principle at its core and provides a framework for PCs to overcome challenges through cunning, might, and magic. Ooh. Might and Magic. I used to love that game. I think they're still making Might and Magic, right? There's Might and Magic, and there was Heroes of Might and Magic. There might be other Mights and Magics. Are there any more? Do we have more core principles? No. Okay, that's it. So in terms of these core elements, fantasy worlds have magic. We're doing heroic adventures. We're going to have unique locations to explore, and we're going to have power structures and systems, and then finally conflict. I think these all sound good. I don't feel like these seem odd or out of place. I mean, I suppose some folks might argue on the magic, because some folks like to play either just no magic or really low magic, or in some of the more sword and sorcery type genre games that there's magic, but the PCs don't really have access to it. In your kind of Conan stories, the sorcerers and wizards are all strange. You're playing kind of a Sinbad campaign. It's similar. There's usually you're trying to run away from or fight sorcerers and folks who are casting magic. You're not doing it yourself, but they probably still have. I believe, or I would imagine, they would consider magic items and stuff also magic, so they probably still applies. But yeah, these are all fine and good. Nothing weird. Nothing. I don't think that's unexpected. I'm not going to go too far into the character creation, because I think I think the one thing with this game, and I remember reading on Reddit some folks who had gotten a hold of these, not necessarily before me, but just had read this before me, and I haven't pre-read this. Okay, that's my usual little 2 bits. I don't pre-read this stuff, but in this case I hadn't, and I think they were disappointed that it was too close to 5th edition. But I think that's kind of the point of this whole exercise. They're not trying to remake the wheel. They're not trying to fix things that they don't perceive are being broken. And they're also, maybe some of the stuff that they do perceive as being broken, they might save for their version, right? Because we have 2 things. We've got Tales of the Valiant, and then we have, what are they calling this? Core fantasy role-playing. Now, this book is called Tales from the Valiant sort of preview, but I'm guessing a lot of this is going to be more or less your base core fantasy game. Maybe not. I don't know. But it seems like if they're still working on the core then they probably aren't yet building on top of it. But I guess I shouldn't speak out of turn. But the whole point of this is to give them a base that is close enough to 5th edition that you can take all the Kobold Press 5 ebooks you might have, 5 ebooks from other folks, the Wizards 5 ebooks, and pretty much run them just moving over to this, which means that for better or worse, they're kind of locked into a lot of the 5e paradigms. Now they can shift some things around. They could try to clarify things. There are sure lots of corners that they can do different things with, but at some point, this is going to be essentially 5th edition or close enough to it. So we should not go in this expecting all these crazy things that are going to happen. Oh my gosh, they're going to do all these things that 5th edition didn't do. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll put that on top. Maybe those will be things that Tales of the Valiant will bolt on top of core fantasy, some way to differentiate it, because clearly they're going to put some stuff in there because they want you, which is understandable. They're making this free thing, and then they want you to say, hey, there's enough value in this thing that we want you to pay for. So what might those be? Probably the things that are more drastic changes or more, I don't know, more not important, but just bigger changes. So with that in mind, I don't anticipate, and we'll just breeze through this, but I don't anticipate that the character creation rules are going to differ wildly from what 5th edition gives you. Maybe there'd be something like, oh, look, here's a different way to do point buy, or here's a different way to do it, an array. But, it's all, if you're brand new to role-playing games, I'm sure there's lots of streams or videos you can watch for how to create characters, but this is not that. So I'm going to kind of skip through. Hey, Gashrin, thanks for joining. Let's see. So we got lineage and heritage. Let's see what they say about that. I'm guessing one is essentially would be your species or race, and the other one being, I'm not sure. So let's read it. Choose your character's lineage and heritage from the options found later in the section. Adventures can be humans or one of the lineages common to fantasy, like dwarf or elf. A heroic character's lineage tells you about certain hereditary traits like average lifespan, size, speed, and any special adaptations like the ability to see in the dark. You can also choose your character's heritage. This tells you about traits your character has because of their connection to a particular group or society. All right, so lineage is essentially genetics and heritage is culture. I think that's good enough. And then we're going to have talking about classes, and they're going to have subclasses. We've got our cleric. Interesting here, just their imagery. I mean, I usually, and I'm sure it's probably hasn't been a thing since 3rd edition, maybe 4th edition, but I always think of clerics with the ban on edged weapons and things. But this cleric totally has an extremely edged weapon going on. Hey, Nova, day's going fine. How about yourself? Thanks for joining. So I don't know if they did this right as a differentiator to say like, hey, our clerics are different. Guess what? You clerics with edged weapons. Well, look at this. She's got like a 1.5 feet of edge on this fancy scythe. That armor is interesting too. So she's kind of got, I don't know. I mean, she's wearing pants and that's fine, but not much protection. And then she's sort of got a midriff. I don't know. That's a interesting bit of armor. Hey, cup of coffee. Well, I'm having tea, but cheers. Let's see. Well, we're 20 minutes into the stream and everybody can still hear me and see me. So I'd say for me, the stream is going fine. All right. There's the cleric. I don't think I need to go through this too much. Get a quick build. You got your class features. Oh, here we go. These might be interesting. So there's a little, I don't want to say offset. Not quite. I guess it's boxed. Yeah, it's technically boxed. Behind the curtain, reworking the cleric. This section covers the changes made to the cleric base class as it appears in 5th edition and some clarifications around the choices made. As always, playtest material is subject to change, so let us know your opinions in the playtest feedback forums listed at the front of this packet. All right, so this is going to be interesting, though I don't have much of a context for it. So Divine Domain is now chosen at 3rd level instead of 1st. This accomplishes several goals. It standardizes class progression so players can achieve important milestones as a group. It better spreads around cleric class features so players have more time to master base cleric abilities before introducing more complex options at higher levels. It makes 3rd level more exciting. Previously, 3rd level granted no new class features. All right, so that's interesting. So they're moving the domain to 3rd level to give third level a bit of a something that makes that level special, spread things around, standardize progression. I like this. One of the things that they don't say that I think is a good thing is by moving it up to third level. And this, okay, this is assuming you're starting at first. If you're starting right at third, this doesn't apply. But if you're starting at first level, then you get to get some of the world under your feet. And then when you get to third level, then you get to choose your domain. I guess I feel like it gives you a little bit more of a context in the world, whatever the game, the table you're playing at. So that when you get to third level and now you pick your domain, you have some ideas, as opposed to you pick a domain at first level. And then as you're going up, you're thinking, oh, well, this campaign maybe doesn't use it that much, or I'm not feeling it, or whatever, right? It's like, oh, I kind of regret it. Well, if you're picking at third, assuming you're starting at first, then I think you get more of a chance to look at it and say, okay, here's what's going on. I get it. I get it now. Now I have some experience. I understand what's going on. And now when I pick this domain, could be more meaningful. I feel like I've got a better grasp on everything that's going on. Nova asks if I stream daily. I tend to stream every weekday. There are exceptions here and then. My schedule, it shifts. This is kind of later in the day than I stream usually, but maybe usually should be in quotes because it kind of changes up. It changes up. Now, the next things they've done, next bullet point on their rework in the cleric, Manifestation of Faith is a new first level feature that allows the cleric to gain additional proficiencies or enhance the power of their spells, depending on whether you want to play more of a warrior-like or priest-like cleric. That's cool to me. Channel Divinity, Turn the Profane, has replaced the previous Turn Undead. Turn the Profane works the same way, but it affects fiends in addition to undead creatures. We hope this change allows the feature to see more play by widening the scope of its use. I want to say in some edition or another you could turn those, but maybe it might be another spell I'm thinking of. But either way, that's cool. I think that's good. And then finally, Destroy the Profane has replaced Destroy Undead. Destroy the Profane works the same way, but it affects fiends in addition to undead creatures. Again, we hope this change makes the feature more universally useful. It does. I mean, I would imagine it would. It's still niche. It's not like turn all of an alignment or turn whatever, but it's going to give you, if you're playing in a game that doesn't feature a lot of undead, but maybe it features fiends and other infernal creatures, then you've still got something to use. So that's good, right? I like that it's still niche. They didn't broaden it too much, but I feel like those are good things to have. Oh, you're starting Nova's starting an art channel. Awesome. Well, good luck. It's a lot of work. And just Nova, just be aware. I don't know what your social media presence and how much of a community you have already, but just there's going to be some period of time where you're essentially going to be streaming to nobody or doing videos to no one. And you just kind of got to do it and push through. Because I definitely went through my periods where I was streaming and I could look up in the chat, nobody there, look up at the number of people watching and there's nobody there. But if you just stop, then you're never going to get started. So you kind of just have to talk and do the things you would do as if there was a room full of people watching you, and you just kind of hope that at some point they show up. Okay, so I'm not going to read through the rest of the cleric class, but I'll probably read those sidebars. I think those are interesting. And then we're on to the fighter. Does the fighter have something similar? Nope, they don't. So then fighters, I'm going to guess, then are fairly similar. We do have... Oh, they have a weapon master. I see. That's their subclass. Okay, I think everything's kind of according to Hoyle on that one. Rogues, wizards, arcane traditions. Right. Here we go. Behind the curtain, we included the cantrip adept as an arcane tradition in this packet because it originally appeared as a 5e subclass in Kobold Press's Tome of Heroes. We wanted to play with an example that would show how easy it is to convert existing 5e options to core fantasy role-playing rules. Okay, well, I'm not familiar with the cantrip adept, but it's good to know. So now we get our lineages and heritages. We've got beastkin, born between civilization and the wilds. Beastkin are as varied as the animal kingdom itself. Sometimes called wildkin or werefolk, beastkin universally share the humanoid form of humans, elves, or dwarves, but have pronounced traits of a specific beast, like the wings of a hawk, the tail of a scorpion, tall rabbit ears, massive owl eyes, a crab-like carapace, the thick, wiry hair of a boar, razor-sharp shark teeth, or the bony horns of an ox. All right, so that's pretty cool. Do you just so you get these natural adaptations? Could be avian, agile, aquatic, sturdy, and you get some natural weapons. That's nice. We got our dwarves and elves, our humans, and then heritage. Oh, interesting. So these heritages, one is called Cloud. Cloud heritage characters were raised with the values and traditions of the Cloud elf communities. Okay, so they have a group of elves that are called Cloud elves, and you can live with them. Go live with the Cloud elves. Did your mother ever tell you that? You don't like it here? Why don't you go live with the Cloud elves? Maybe I will, Mom. Cosmopolitan heritage, Fireforge heritage. Those are some okay. When if you lived with the Fireforge dwarven clans, I think the nice thing here too is these heritages are separate from the lineages. So you could be a human or an elf that lived with the dwarves, that grew up with the dwarves, or you could be a dwarf that grew up with the elves. You could be a human that grew up anywhere. So it's kind of neat. I like that a lot because there's oftentimes people want to play, and it's not a trope that is rare. The sort of fish out of water, or the character who was raised by a completely different species that comes back. Like there's a lot of fun there. So here they've just enabled it by saying, yeah, you're split. You could totally be a Cloud elf that was raised by Cloud elves. But if you want to be something different, funky, you see there's a story there. If you're a Cloud elf that was raised by the Fireforged dwarves, then go for it or turn it around, right? So yeah, they have more of those. Elements of a background. I think we're good with these. Magic talents, also good. Is there anything in here? We got, so these are talents, are their feats, stand-ins. I haven't seen any more of those behind the screens. I kind of hope there's more of those because I really like reading those. Now we get to spell casting. Instead of levels, looks like there's rings. The rings of spells. The arcane circle draws its power from manipulating measurable forces that govern material reality. This includes forces like heat, space, and gravity. An arcane caster uses a precise combination of words, gestures, and materials to ignite a roaring flame or link two locations hundreds of miles apart. All right. Looking for anything, I think this is all good. I mean, I'm not reading it, and I hope the fact that I'm not reading it is not, I'm not trying to make any statement on qualities or lack thereof. What I'm just trying to do is I don't think I need to read through everything that's essentially 5th edition-ish, rewritten 5th edition, 5th edition simplified, because a lot of this stuff, since I am not fluent in 5th edition, isn't going to be, I'm not going to be able to pick up on if there's a nuance that they've flipped or something that they've done. But I appreciate that they've written all this out in this playtest document so that it is usable for folks who want to take this and then draw up some characters with it, or maybe play a one-shot with it and just kind of give it a run. Having all this basic information is good, because if you didn't have all this, you'd have to just go back to 5th edition and use their rules, in which case you wouldn't get a good sense of how, if there is any difference between the two, or how would these rules clean up 5th edition rules? Well, you wouldn't tell if they didn't have all this stuff in here, even though this stuff in terms of showing off what's new or different may be more subtle, or may not show much differences at all. It's kind of all this basic groundwork you need to have. And then we get a bunch of spells, spell descriptions. We have monsters, types, aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, humanoids, monstrosities, oozes, plants, and undead. So I feel like that's fairly typical. We have a whole bunch of, so they're using tags here. Tags. Monsters have various tags that further specify their creature type. If a monster has a tag, it appears as part of their stat block in parentheses after size and type. So it's kind of a subtype, maybe. So the tags they have are angel, animal, animated, chaotic, corrupt, demon, devil, evil, goblinoid, good, lawful, outsider, shadow, and shape changer. So it'd be interesting. Can you have multiple tags? Could I have something that is both a demon and a goblinoid? Or I suppose you could have giant goblinoid, fiend goblinoid. So just for example, the goblinoid one, because I keep saying it, is a creature related to one of the goblinoid lineages, including goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears. It doesn't appear that there's anything mechanical here, but it's a nice flavor thing. Maybe you have a bugbear and they took some kind of potion that made them giantish permanently or some magic item, and you wanted to not just have that reflected in the descriptive text, but have it as at a glance, so you could have that giant parentheses goblinoid. And someone might go, huh? If that doesn't make sense, they can read it, but then you go, oh yeah, that's because they did this thing. I'm guessing that's maybe how you use it, but maybe there are some mechanics down the line that will be affected, or maybe certain spells might affect them because they have the goblinoid tag. Unknown. Okay, so armor class, hit point, speed, yada, yada, yada. Got all that. GM wisdom. In the core fantasy role-playing rules, a PC with the invisible condition has advantage on dex checks made to hide or sneak past a monster that relies on sight-based senses like vision or night vision. Keep in mind that invisibility doesn't completely mask a creature's presence. Invisibility doesn't suppress the sound of footsteps or the smell of nervous sweat. The invisible condition grants no benefits when sneaking past a monster while within range of its non-sight-based senses like keen sense or tremor sense, assuming the monster has such a sense. And I think this is it slightly different? No, because they're not, because I think there's a whole thing with invisibility that has to do with you could be invisible but detected. Something else happens to detect you, but you still get advantage, because the way that it's written is the advantage on checks is separated from the actual physical invisibility of the invisibility spell. And don't at me, I'm not 100% on the nuance there, but basically the way it's written is it's like you have two things. One, you get advantage on these things. Second, you are physically invisible. So what happens if you're not physically, you are, because of a creature's senses, you are actually visible. It still doesn't affect the first part, which is getting advantage. And that is, in terms of what I've seen from the folks in charge, that is as intended. That is as it's supposed to be. You get advantage and you get the other thing. And if you don't get the other thing, you still get advantage. Right? So don't yell at me, yell at whomever. However, I'm not sure if this is meant to basically undo that piece. I mean, I suppose we could look and see where it is, where if they have invisibility written up, but it might be, because I want to say that the way what this seems to be saying is that if something detects you because they've got something else going on, is you are not getting the advantage, which I want to say is slightly different than 5th edition. It's one of those. These are the things I imagine. And not just this particular set of rules, but a bunch of these other 5e kind of stand-ins, alternative rules is gonna do, or wants to do, is fix some things. And I guess it's a boon for these folks. You can go on to Reddit and other places, you can see the people arguing back and forth. Well, this is stupid, it makes no sense, or this or that, or well, this is how it's written, and this is how they said it's intended. And you can take, as a guide designer, you can just take notes, say, great, we're going to come in and we're going to rewrite invisibility so that if you lose the actual visible part, you still don't have advantage. Brian Smith is asking where Cthulhu is. Well, it's just Chthonic Thursday. I don't have anything particularly Cthulhu. I assume that at least one person's going to come in and say, this is not horror related, unless you find these rules horrible. I just like the idea of Chthonic Thursday. But maybe at some point I will I'll have enough horror related stuff to do kind of horror day. But for now, we're just I'm gonna use this as kind of a grab bag day, or just stuff I need to get through day. Null Terminated says that something changed in 1D materials. Okay. Well, I don't doubt that. Hey, if I'm WotC, I would definitely do the same thing these folks are doing, is look through all those forums where people are arguing back and forth about the way things work, especially when it's not intuitive. And then invisibility, whether it's intended or not, is not intuitive at all. And fixing it one way or another. Either just making it super clear, yeah, we're doubling down on this weird way invisibility works, that that's just the way it is, or a chance to say, hey, we wrote it, we didn't really get the way we wrote it, and then we're just living with it because, yes, that's how we wrote it in retrospect, so we're just going to live with it, and now we're going to rewrite it to change it to another way. All behind me is non-Euclidean geometry, Brian Smith. You just can't tell because it's all green, except for my chair. So behind the curtain here, ability scores in monster stat blocks have changed in this document compared to 5e. We've streamlined ability modifier presentation so GMs can more quickly access what they need. Ability modifiers now also have multiple uses, eliminating the redundancy of separate numbers for saves and skills. The intent is to make key information easier to find and to provide creative flexibility in running a monster. Use the feedback form to let us know whether this works for you and how to use it. Okay. Well, I probably will just want to look at least one of these sample monsters. Let's look at the Black Dragon, because I think while this Husk Demon looks really cool, I feel like looking at something that we've seen a bunch before is actually nice for just seeing what they're doing differently. So here they have a Black Dragon Hatchling. It's a medium dragon that is evil. Armor class 17, hit points 52, speed 30 feet, fly 60 feet, swim 40 feet, stealth 15, perception 13. It's immune to acid. It's got keen senses out 10 feet and night vision out 60 feet. Speaks Draconic, has a proficiency bonus +2. And then for its stats, it's just getting the modifiers. So nothing, I think, particularly stand out. It makes a nice little stat block. And then we have, obviously, there's stuff in here. So it's got a note here that it's cowardly. They are gem hoarders and they're local despots. So these are nice, more role-playing things, right? I don't think that there's anything mechanical in here, but it's giving you some clues as to how to play Black Blagons, how to play Black Dragons, which I think is useful. A lot of folks have a need for that or a desire for that. And so we get that, which is good. And then I think I guess to look at the Husk Demon as a different sort of monster, here it's got some special abilities that are listed underneath its stat blocks, including Doom, Immaterial Form, Void, Absorption, and then it's given specific actions. Actually, you know what? I'm guessing that Black Dragon's also going to have this on the next page. Let's see if I'm right. I was right. Okay, so then I should have. So then continuing, we do have these abilities, Amphibious, and it's got a pounce attack or pounce. It can do a pounce action, maybe, which is basically it moves at least 15 feet, and then it can do something. And then for its actions, its attacks, it's got a bite, a claw, and it's got acid breath that recharges on a 5 or a 6. And then more actions. Oh, no, that's a different one. And then we get a different young Black Dragon. And then that's it. So we got, this is just a sample. So that's cool. I got no beef with these. I just want to go look at that Husk again. So the Husk's got a bunch of different actions, and then it's got a bonus action. What's one Doom? Oh, I see. So the Husk has a currency that they're calling, it's called Doom. The Husk Demon has 1 Doom point, which it can expend to use its standard Doom options or the envelop bonus action. How does it get more Doom from something? That's kind of cool, but I'd love to know how it gets more Doom if it can. Yep, Drac Blagons, the black sheep cousin of Bilbo and Frodo. That's true. Could be. Could be. Multerminated says it's amusing that they made them streamlined, but seemingly went out of their way to use art to force the blocks to span page borders. Yeah, right. That's a good point. That's a good point. It's a playtest document, but yes, it would have been. I feel like maybe they could have shrunk that a little bit and maybe put both parts, use this space here and use that. Yeah, they probably could have, but. And then here it's broken too. It's a playtest doc. The art's nice though. Goblin looks kind of cool. The Goblin Captain. This is something I did like from 4th edition. I mean, not that I didn't like anything from 4th edition, but I feel like 4th edition is getting there's a whole renaissance of people who just adore 4th edition, which is great, I guess. But now I feel like it's swinging almost too much, where now these threads are all like, yeah, anybody who didn't like 4th edition, are complaining about this, that, and the other, they just didn't play it, or it's just whatever. It's like, no, a lot of us played it and I had fun playing it, but let's not pretend that some of these faults don't exist. Maybe they didn't affect certain groups, but they did exist. But one of the things I did like was you had these monsters, you have different types. They would often be of these different, so 4th edition broke down your classes into different roles, whether you like that or not. Some people like it, some people don't. I kind of come in like, yeah, somewhat, kind of, sort of, but it was helpful with monsters. So you could have a goblin, which could be like a soldier type. And then you could have a captain, which is more of a controller type. And their abilities would kind of match what they're doing. So soldiers, if I remember correctly, they were mostly defensive, like soldiers, shields, and they're sort of holding the line. That's kind of the soldiers thing. And then a controller is all about controlling the terrain or controlling the battlefield, basically. But it was neat because having those rules for the monsters meant that you could quickly eyeball something and then have it and see what it is. So you can look at that goblin captain and say, oh, it's a controller, and then kind of have an idea how to play it. And that's something I kind of wish for monsters anyway. Maybe it'd been more apparent. Now these rules aren't giving you that, but I do like that they're giving you different versions of the creature because they don't always do that. Right. So here we see, so we got just our plain goblin here, and then our hyped up goblin captain who's got a bow on his back, but does he actually have a bow? No, he's got a javelin. Fix that Kobold Games. If you're going to put a bow in the picture, just give them a bow. And people complain about a lot of low-level creatures not having distance weapons. Oh, so the normal goblin has a short bow, as they should, but then the goblin captain has a javelin, but they gave him a bow. And then we got some other ones. I feel like I don't need to look at more. And there we are. So that's basically the end. Be bold, be brave, be valiant. So as I mentioned before, if you are interested in this, if you saw this quick start and say, hey, I'd like more, I'd like to follow the Kickstarter, if you could use the Kickstarter link in the show description. And it's not because I get money from the Kickstarter or I get any kickbacks from Kobold. I don't. I wish I did, but I don't. It's just that it will tell Kobold Games, because they're tracking it. I'm not even tracking it, but they're able to track it, and they'll see that, oh, some folks came from my channel, which just for me just lets them know that if maybe potentially if I ask to see something later on, that they might be more inclined to let me see it, because at least they got there was some traffic, it showed some interest. So if you were interested in this and you wanted to check out the Kickstarter, if you could use my link, I'd appreciate it. But if you're not interested, don't click on the link on my account. That was Tales of the Valiant. Next up is one that was sent to me a while back, and super apologies that it took me. It got kind of stuck in my back pile, and I'm only now just getting to it, but hopefully it's not too little too late. It's called Bazaar of Vice, a devilish location of vice and sin for your tabletop role-playing game. One of the things that happens at times, at least for me, is in this case for this one, is I didn't think I could do an hour on this piece because it's just not that long. At least I didn't think so. We'll see. So I kept waiting for something else to come up that was also maybe short, and then I could do like I'm doing today, do a bit of this and do a bit of that, and just nothing came. But then when this Kobold Press thing showed up and I saw, oh, it's not that long, I finally was like, yeah, I can finally sneak in Bazaar of Vice. I probably could have done this just as a regular video, but I didn't. So here we are. Better late than never, I hope. And there's a link to this is on Drive-Thru. There's a link to the Drive-Thru page for this in the show notes. This was created for Brimstone, a fantasy game of piratical, seafaring, and diabolical dealings, due for release in early 2023. Ooh, you know what? I didn't check to see if this is up or not, but you can go to Steel Sorcery Substack, steelsorcery.substack.com if you want to check that out. Overview of the Bazaar. Sunk into a canyon in the sandblasted wastelands of hell, the Bazaar of Vice forms the location. Every backhanded transaction that takes place, outcomes of the future, changing with every trade. So I'm going to take a sip of oolong tea here. When walking through the market, one finds themselves overwhelmed with darkness, danger, and some aspect of stimulating excitement. Smoke of brimstone wafting over exotic wares, rare and potent potions, to houses of the most depraved and forbidden of pleasures. Among the crowds of vendors and customers are the menacing figures of demons and devils, watching over the dealings with cold, unblinking eyes. Anything can be found for the right price. Using the Bazaar of Vice. The Bazaar of Vice is intended as a game supplement for any fantasy role-playing game where the party needs to, or wants to, gain some item or ability of significant power. The contents within provide resources and prompts to plug and play this into your world. Only a small amount of preparation, usually just to tailor it to the situation of the campaign, is needed. It otherwise can be pulled up ad hoc as they come and go from the location. Play up the themes of evil. It should be a desperate and uncomfortable place, only intended to be visited as a last resort. So there you go. Sounds pretty cool to me. So how do we enter? We've got a nice table. These are just potential entry points, ranging from an ancient arcane portal hidden within a dungeon, to a local town NPC that is secretly a minion of hell, to When invited to a party of a noble, a special guest, potentially as a reward for a quest or similar, they find a sultry succubi who offers a new experience. So there you go. And then why come to the bazaar? Use the tables as prompts as to why the party would need to come here. In combination with the how to enter table, one can construct a reasonable reason to arrive. So we have these, again, potential entry points, or I guess this might be a typo because I feel like this is potential reasons. Could be to trade or exchange vices for more desirable or useful ones. That's a really interesting concept. To find and purchase rare and powerful items, or potentially to barter for favors or services, or for a wealthy noble, or because a wealthy noble is seeking the party's help to retrieve a family heirloom that has been lost in the Bazaar of Vice. So there you have some nice, could be a plot hook, essentially to get folks down there. Of course, if the party is aware of the Bazaar of Vice, it could be that any of these things could lead. You don't need to use the table. You could just use for what they need. Oh, we need a certain thing. Where could it be? I don't know, but we could always try to get to the Bazaar of Vice. And of course, how do we get there? Roll on the table of potential entry points, and then maybe sprinkle those in your rumor tables. Heck, you could just sprinkle that in your rumor tables just anyway, just to see what happens. Random encounters. Moving between the bazaar location will require a random encounter to be rolled with a 1 in 6 chance of one occurring. So you're going to roll a 1 in 6, and if you get a 1, or I suppose a 6, depending on what you like, something happens. So the random encounters, hey, Ian. Random encounters could be a guide comes up to the party who will show them a location they have not yet visited. Another one might be an NPC they know of is seen in the distance at the bazaar, perhaps someone they viewed as conventionally innocent or friendly. That's an interesting one because that one's a neat one because it kind of could really change the scope of someone, right? Like there's someone who's like a benefactor, a mentor, somebody who's kindly. Maybe they're really the big bad evil guy, as folks love to do. Well, guess what? Have them being seen in the bazaar if the party ends up here is a way to show, what's the word? Foreshadow the fact that they're not what they seem to be. Or another one's a hireling escaped from another party, grovels, asking to be taken away before they are found. That's a good one. On to the 3 dealers. The 3 dealers of the Bazaar of Vice run most of the operations. They provide the best benefits at the highest costs. They provide a selection of such, but are open to more bespoke deals. So one is Vordek. The dense market stalls make way for a monstrous ziggurat that seems to have been grown out from the ground beneath. The steps and levels dotted with powerful guards who watch any who make their way up. Walking into the top, one finds Vordek rigidly sitting in his throne. He stands 2 stories tall, giant goat-like legs with hooves, dark red skin with a muscular body, forward-facing horns growing from the side of his head. His hand is alight with dark black fire. Well, that's definitely creepy. So personality, he speaks with short sentences, no lingual flourish, does not engage in small talk and threatens anyone with death if they do not take it seriously. So basically, this is not the one you want to go and pull a practical joke on. You want to be a straight shooter with old Vordek. Now, I guess offerings are the stuff that you can potentially do. He can imbue wrath. He can command. He can grant pride or wrath. He can make someone a flesh eater. He can give guidance, or I guess give you the power of wrath. Is that if that's what that means? And then the costs, you could roll. It says D6, but they're 8. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm guessing it's probably supposed to be a D8. You might have to kill a well-known noble or community figure the party's aware of. You might have to exchange their soul, your soul, their soul. They might have to exchange their soul. They might have to kill one seemingly innocent person for the remainder of their life once per full moon. Oof. Oh, so you have to go on a spree once per full moon for the rest of your life, killing one seemingly innocent person a month. That's a lot. Or you can no longer heal by resting, only by magical means. That one's rough. The next dealer is Zara. Walking through a small door set into the walls, one steps into a parlor of curtained-off lounges, wafting incense, immediately scanned by the eyes of succubi who drape over the furniture and hanging chandeliers. Basking in flickering red light sits Zara. Her pale skin adorned with a translucent silken gown, fiery red hair, and piercing green eyes make her irresistible to most who are met with her presence. Her piercing gaze seems to look right through a person's soul. She speaks with a soft and sultry voice. She has confidence and power, and she tries to position herself as a friend. She shows empathy. Brian Smith going back to Vordek. Oh, whoopee cushion, I threaten thee with death. Yeah, he might not even say that. He just might just look at you as the whoopee cushion goes, and then it's just, pew. He's probably not. He's not interested in small talk. He's a man of action, Vordek. So Zara, her offerings, she can erase memory. She has an eternal youth serum. She's got a heartstone potion. She can increase beauty. She can charm person. She can also disguise self. And what does it cost, you say? Well, you might have to kill a prominent community leader. Again, you might have to have someone fall in love with you and then break their heart. Ouch. You might have to corrupt someone into indulging into a vice. You might have to create a temple of at least 10,000 gold pieces. Or you might have to become chaste and fall into her servitude after death. Ooh, or this one I like. You might have to actually go to Vordek and take one of his costs. You probably don't want that one. And then I think they said there were 3, so this would be the last one. Thalia, surrounded by nauseating cauldrons of the dead, barrels of the boiling blood, and macerations of unknown monsters, lies a sunken den covered in a stinking haze. Tentacles writhe from the murky waters to the edges. Stepping down into the den, slipping from the slimy mud, one sees Thalia. She is a swollen figure lying in a carved-out stump of an ancient tree. Thousands of years of gluttony and sloth give her a disgusting, morbid appearance. Chain demons fan her overheating body. Her personality is she has drunken speech and she slurs words and she tangents and randomly aborts sentences. She attempts to be charming and hospitable, offering food and drink, and she is convinced her path of sloth and greed is how all should aspire to be. In her offerings you can gain the vices of sloth, greed, pride, or envy. You could leave your body. You might be able to conjure fake gold. You can inflict a vice on someone, or you can corrupt a peasant into a thrall. But the costs, you may have to steal a relic or artifact from a local religious order. You might have to give her an offering of 10,000 gold pieces. You might be forced to steal something when visiting a shop, even something innocuous. Or you might need to nap once per day for an hour, no matter what. And that's on top of your normal nighttime sleep. And these naps must happen before nightfall, so you can't fold them into your sleepy time. Now, the vices. While the common peasant's typical idea of a vice may be someone that has one too many drinks, slept out of wedlock, or hoards his gold to the detriment of others, the below are almost supernatural hexes imparted on the afflicted. So here are the vices. So pride, I kind of feel like this should have been more upfront, because just my personal thing, if you're going to have players or you have creatures who are, or descriptions in your book that are mentioning these, it's nice to have the context ahead of time, but I'm glad we got it now. So pride, you can reroll a d20 once per day, but a crit fail on a natural 1 and 2. Greed, if you're rolling for gold found, you may reroll. Lust, a +2 bonus to rolls related to your charisma. But you must do, I see there's these things in italics I haven't reading. So on pride, you always argue your point to others. On greed, you always insist on having more of the treasure, even if it's a tiny amount. For lust, you must do 1 lustful action per day. Envy, if you roll low, you can swap out the result with another player's roll. They will get the low roll, you will get theirs. That one's great because there's no real penalty for that. But of course, at the table, that's going to annoy people. It's going to kind of be its own penalty in a way. Gluttony, you can consume any reasonable flesh in the place of a ration. Gross. But you must spend 1/10 of gold gained on exotic foods and drink. Wrath, you have a 1 in 6 chance of being able to rile a creature up to battle you, but you must fight or brawl every day. And then sloth, you regain 1d6 extra hit points on a short rest, but you can only carry 10 items. Ouch. Brian Smith says Baron Harkonnen vibes. Yes, for sure. So now we have some other stalls in the bazaar, including the death pits, the wailing well, the rumor mill, the bloodbaths, and the vice smith. They each have their own interaction. I'm not going to read all of these, but let's read the bloodbaths. A bathhouse that offers rejuvenation and healing through the use of blood-based magic. Strange, large mosquitoes undertake the procedure. Gross. Characters can pay 1,000 gold pieces per each year of life-extending treatment they wish to receive. Characters can also pay to change their features, such as hair and eye color, cleansing imperfections, etc. for a cost of 200 gold pieces per alteration. This one is sneaky really good. Sneaky good. Now, getting extra years is something that's very niche, but if you get some spell or something where you get aged or you need to age yourself, it's kind of sneaky good. But this one, it's a great way of having a reason how someone can escape. You know, the bad guy escapes and then comes back, and then, hey, how come we didn't notice, or how come we didn't we looked for illusions and we didn't see any and we didn't get them? Well, it's because they came to the bloodbaths and literally had their features changed. It's not, I mean, maybe they would you could argue whether they should, if you cast detect magic on them, something could happen, but it's not like this is an illusion or something. Like, no, they literally came down and got their face turned into putty and then remade. And of course the characters may need to, you may get in a situation where everyone knows what you look like and it's the heat is too hot. So come down to the bloodbaths and get your face changed. I'm guessing, though, it doesn't seem like you could change your gender or change your height, so it's not a full kind of polymorph, but useful nonetheless. Brian Smith says, definitely can see tables discussing what reasonable flesh is. Ick. Yes, well, the fact that you're engaging in those discussions probably is good for that kind of power. So other stalls in the bazaar, we have poisons, soothsaying, and then the other activities, sleeping and eating. I like that they have interactions. If one sleeps in the bazaar, the following effects could take place. And there's a table of D6 effects. And then eating, if a character accepts a bite of food, the following table can be used to determine the outcome afterwards. So you have D6 food effects, which is also really good. And then cleansing. No player wants to see their beloved character end in a spiraling pit of sin. Divine entities can offer a form of redemption for each character who wishes to rid themselves of all vice, dealing, and the like. Roll on this table. This is their method to repent. So then they get a redemption arc, of which there's 4. One is become a cleric, must be devout, replace current class with clerical class at a rate of 1 per month. They have to kill the dealer. Oof. They have to become pure. All adventuring gains must be used charitably. No sin committed. That's rough. And then 4, they have to pray. After 1d4 weeks, a divine will arrive to cleanse you. That one seems the easiest, or the one with the least. I'd have to say, I feel like that should be, I'm not sure. I want to amp that one up because the other ones are all good, rough in a good way. Killing the dealer seems going to be tough. Okay. Becoming a cleric, not that it's tough. You think, well, become a cleric, but you're losing your class. This is not like you become a cleric and then you're multi-classing into it. It's like, no, you're becoming a cleric. So you're losing everything you had, whatever it was, whatever you loved, and you're becoming a cleric, literally. And like your class is transforming into cleric. So that one's also can be kind of tough just because you might have to go against you're going against your player's whole conception, which I think is good, or your character's, the concept of your character, which I think is fitting because you're trying to undo this purification, seems like a big thing. But then just praying for 4 weeks, it's just downtime. It's just pray. So I'd want it to be more like you have to pray like every day. Again, like that taking a nap. You got to pray for an hour during the day, all day long. Or you can't, and it's something you're going to have to remember and do. And if you stop, then you got to start over, or, I don't know, something happens, right? Because I think the other thing I want to know, well, what happens if you start down the path and then decide like, no, what happens? Maybe it's a one-time deal that if you fail at your redemption arc, you don't get another one. Killing a dealer may seem like an impossible task, but with some investigation, players can discover these facts. The dealer is not as combatively powerful as they seem. Their power rivals pit fiends and the like. If they attempt to strike, they have mere moments to kill before the bazaar unleashes its forces on them, guaranteeing their death. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So you don't want to share this part with your players. And then if they decide to attack, use these rough mechanical guidelines. They have 1d4 rounds to kill it before they are swarmed. The dealer has hit points equal to around 70. If killed, they retreat, but can somehow be followed. The swarm will follow. Teleportation of some form of contingency is required. That one's a little bit unclear. I'm not sure if the dealer's killed, the dealer retreats, but can somehow be followed. And then I'm not sure what the swarm is. Oh, and that's it. Awesome. So this was cool. Bazaar of Vice. Who did it say? There's no. Where's the? Well, if you go to the drive-through page, which is in the show notes, you can get the information, because I just noticed there's no no inside bit where it's where you can see the authorial information. This is really great. I think it lives up to what it says it is. It's a devilish location of vice and sin that you can drag and drop in your campaign. I would agree. The mechanics are very much kind of self-contained. There's not a lot that's system that really depends on any kind of system. I think it's great. And I could also see using this as inspiration for all kinds of interesting locations that you may want. It really has that kind of mythical vibe of you ending up in a space that's got, some people dealing in the weird and powerful. And if you really like this, you want to use it, I can think of lots of ways to get your players put it on their radar, whether it's through rumor tables, whether it's through requests that they may get from folks, whether it's things that they need for the quest that can't be found. And when they search around for it, the clues lead them to the Bazaar of Vice. And it's definitely a great place for if somebody's on the run, whether it's a player, whether it's an NPC, whether it's a big bad evil guy that's down on their luck, where might they go to try to re-power up, change their face, maybe gain some power to come back with a vengeance? Bazaar of Vice. I dig it. I like it a lot. If you like it, check out that Drive-Thru-RPG link. Any last things before I close up shop? Thanks everyone for hanging out. Sorry that there's no Cthulhu and Chthonic Thursday. I really just kind of like the name. And I will try eventually if I can get enough horror stuff to do something more horrible. But that's why I called in the title Grab Bag of Holding, because that's kind of what this was it's a grab bag of a few things I wanted to cover. If you missed it, I covered Kobold Press and their Tales of the Valiant playtest material, preview material earlier. So you can go to if you missed it, go to the front of the stream and check it out. And just to reiterate, if you are interested in the Kickstarter, if you remember to, if you use the link from the show notes, it's just, it has some tracking code on there which just tells Kobold that you came from me and I don't get any money out of it. I don't get any money from Kickstarter. I don't get anything at all, but it just lets them know that it was worth their time to put me on their email distribution list. And then maybe later on, if I actually ask to see some of these materials, when they finalize them, they'll look back and say, oh, yes, we got some traffic from there. And so, sure, you're somebody who is not totally a waste of time dealing with. And that's all that I can ask, right? Well, I guess with that, I will bid you adieu. Should be back tomorrow with Feedback Friday. We're doing locations this week. I have a few from the community, but if you have an interesting location that you used in your game and you'd like to share it with folks, head over to forums.hexed.press. There is a thread about it. Go in there and share your locations. I'm going to write my one that I want to share probably tonight, and we'll go through them tomorrow. And then if we have extra time, we'll go into Reddit and check out what else is going on in the community. With that, folks, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening this. If you found yourself in here on your way out, if you could give the thumbs up, that'll be awesome. If you aren't subscribed to the channel and you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.